Hello, good evening, welcome to our radio. Today is 2nd of November 2020. Yesterday was an important day because on November 1st, several states in India were formed, starting from Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Haryana, Madhya Pradesh, Punjab, and Union territories like Lakshadweep, Puducherry, and so on. And today on 2nd of November, we have some important articles that are present in the Hindu newspaper. The first important article is related to India's foreign policy and how India's foreign policy will survive or will be affected with several changes that have happened, or several changes should be undertaken because of new things that have happened. We're talking about the 2+2 summit that we had with USA. So as you know, India conducts the 2+2 summit with USA on annual basis. This was the third ever summit and several new things happened. One of the most important is how we became an extraordinary friend or an extraordinary partner of US. Here, several things are important to be listed that talk about India-US friendship. First is how China was condemned by USA and how India wanted it to be condemned because of the kind of things China has been doing. And USA said that it's pretty irrational or it's outrightly irrational about what China is doing in the LAC region. Apart from that, we signed the BECA agreement or the Basic Exchange Cooperation Agreement, which is one of the 4 select agreements which among this military cooperation between India and USA. And India now has stood in a position where we have signed all 4 agreements, and we are one of those selected countries that has an access to BECA and also one of those selected countries that have signed all 4 agreements. And this talks about several important changes in the military cooperation, some new changes in military cooperation, security cooperation, secure communication, etc. Now, if you talk about BECA is quite important because India will get access to all kind of geospatial information of the USA, which is specified and very classified. And this has made us more closer to USA. But what we have to understand here is that it's not only USA that will be sharing information with India, but India will also have to set out some kind of information to US. So that's the thing about this very summit, and this has become very important and a very strategic move. If you go a little further and if you understand from a holistic point of view, you'll know that this is great. The cooperation is amazing. There's a great friendship, but India has some important prices to pay here and several important changes to make here. First, you can talk about how India is not strategically autonomous anymore. Since we are going so close to USA and changing and exchanging so much information, we are not strategically autonomous anymore. Apart from that, we can talk about how our idea was there that we are equidistant from power blocks, and how today we are not equidistant with power blocks because we are going more and more closer to US. Of course, there's an anti-China coalition now between USA and India, and of course in the Indo-Pacific region. The major agenda is anti-China as such. But apart from that, what we have to know that Quad is also following this. Quad is another important aspect of it. Well, the authors of the opinion that we did not have great relations with China from the very, very starting point. We've had our own ups and downs. We have somehow tried to fix it by having informal summits like the Mamallapuram summit. But now for sure, the relations are going to exacerbate and going to be affected in the most severe manner ever, is what the author says. Because as you know, USA itself does not have great relations with China, and of course China does not have great relations with USA. You saw the trade war scenario, and this is how it's going to pan out for the country. Now, India should balance its diplomacy, and India should balance its presence in several important regions after this 2+2 summit. What are those places? First, we can talk about our neighborhood. India has to make sure that our neighbors remain our proper neighbors and are not going into the flow with USA, are not getting too close with USA. Because as you know, this time the 2+2 summit, after the summit, the key players of USA also went to Sri Lanka, they also went to Maldives. So we have to make sure that our neighbors are most importantly balanced, and everything else is going on in the right manner. Apart from that, we have to understand that India has to balance its policy in the West Asia and the Gulf region also. Now, why do I say this? It is because India has gone forward to provide recognition to the Abraham Accords, and India has a very important role to play because it has to balance its diplomacy, as there are so many things happening out there. What are those things? We are knowing that there is a Sunni Shia divide there. There is a problem of countries that are speaking against this agreement, the recognition of Israel. So India has to balance out its presence in the West Asian and the Gulf region in the most strategic manner. Next, we can talk about Afghanistan. Now, USA has pulled out of Afghanistan, and India has very less presence in Afghanistan because India's enemies or adversaries are at superpower there. And most important thing is about Iran. Now, we know that USA and Iran are not at great friends with each other or are not at great relations with each other. Hence, it is important for USA, for India, to not break friends with Iran, not break friendship with Iran, because Iran is the only way we are reaching Afghanistan. As you know, Afghanistan is located across the POK region and we cannot cross POK to go to Afghanistan, hence we have Iran. Now, if we lose Iran due to presence of China and our closely growing relations with USA, it will be tough for India to outreach Afghanistan. Well, that's another important issue. The next one is SCO, that is Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is very important because this was predominantly an anti-NATO alliance which was formed with countries like Russia and China. And this was predominantly to curb the exponential growth of USA across the world borders. And now, since India has moved towards USA, which was a very important part of SCO, we have to see how this Shanghai Cooperation Organization will pan out for us. Apart from that, I can talk to you about NAM, non-alignment movement, which India spearheaded, but now India has gone more closer towards USA, and this whole idea of NAM is going to be nullified very, very soon. Apart from that, we can also note the most important thing that is going to affect India, or most important balance that India needs to make, is with Russia. Russia is a very good friend of India, has been a very good friend, a time-tested partner, but because of USA, our friendship with Russia can go haywire because Russia does not like USA that much. We are all aware of it. It's the most simple thing we understand in IR, that the Cold War and all those things have not panned out well for them and they are not at great relations with each other. Now, if they realize that we are going way closer to what we were with USA, it will be a tough scenario for India to balance and tough scenario for India to manage. So we have to wait and see about how this will pan and how this will look for us and take right steps in this regard. So this is about India's foreign policy that is going to be changed and that is going to be that will have to be balanced in the right manner or will be tough for the country in the world sphere. Well, let us move on to the next editorial, which talks about the coronavirus or the COVID-19 pandemic. This editorial talks about how from 70,000 cases in a day, we have started to report lesser and lesser cases, and we have reached 50,000 cases in a day. It's becoming lesser and lesser. It's a great thing to note because even though cases are lesser, the testing capacity has not gone down. Testing is same. Testing is hitting the same kind of capacity every day, and even then the less occurrence of cases have been reported. Well, it's good because in majority areas also this is happening, where Maharashtra, Gujarat, where all the cases were very, very high, it's happening there as well. The cases reporting is less and less in comparison to the previous times that we faced. But the author says the rural areas are more vulnerable now because rural areas do not have huge or very, very good public healthcare infrastructure. They don't have a lot of personnel to take care of them. They don't have sufficient investment in primary healthcare. So rural places can be more vulnerable. And the author says this can be just a blip. This can be another blip. As the cases might surge, there can be another corona curve, a bigger surge or a bigger wave after the winter or during the time of winter. As the festivities cross, people have completely forgotten about the idea of social distancing, about the idea of measures that were supposed to be taken, so on and so forth. So the author says if we are not maintaining the right kind of things, or if we are becoming too complacent, then we are sure that we will have another problem here. But if we undertake measures like sanitation, hygiene, mask, etc., we will be safe from coronavirus and we will stop the growth of coronavirus. And now the government has started the unlock period, where the theaters have been unlocked, the malls have been unlocked, the gyms have been unlocked, and soon schools also will be unlocked. So we can supposedly see a bigger curve if the measures are not maintained in the proper manner and the government doesn't take steps in the right manner. So this is about the coronavirus pandemic. And talking about coronavirus pandemic, how can we not talk about health? So there is a beautiful graph or the beautiful data point in Hindu newspaper that speaks very, very nicely about the healthcare in India. It says India spends 3.5% of its GDP on healthcare, which is pretty similar to what SAARC nations, that is South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, those nations do, and ASEAN nations, that is Association of Southeast Asian Nations do, like Sri Lanka, like Thailand, like Indonesia. They spend 4%, 3%, 5% of the GDP, and India spends 3.5%. But when it comes to the BRIC counterparts like Brazil, Russia, China, South Africa, they spend over 8%. USA spends 16% of its GDP on health. So considering the population, considering the diversity and the heterogeneous nature of the Indian subcontinent, India should spend at least 10% of its GDP on healthcare. Now, out-of-pocket expenditure is another problem that India faces. And some states, the out-of-pocket expenditure is huge. On an average, in India, the out-of-pocket expenditure is over 4,000 rupees on an average. And UP, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Jharkhand, Uttarakhand have all topped in the race of out-of-pocket expenditure, and states like Himachal Pradesh, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Kerala are doing fine. But if you talk about private healthcare and the involvement of private healthcare, again the average percentage that of private hospitals are used, that is like 60% or less than 60% or more than 40% are private hospitals. And in states like Uttar Pradesh, Bihar and Punjab, the private hospitals are very much used in number in comparison to states like Himachal Pradesh, Delhi, Goa, where there is less reliance on private hospitals. Apart from that, you can talk about the most important current affairs for today, that the next batch of Rafale is coming. So we ordered 36 Rafale jets which will be delivered to us by the end of 2021. 5 were present and now 3 more are coming. Let us learn a little bit facts about Rafale. Rafale is a twin-engine multi-role combat aircraft. A twin-engine multi-role combat aircraft designed and developed by Dassault aircraft manufacturer from France. The top speed of Rafale is 2,223 km per hour. Its weight is 24,500 kgs and its range is 3,700 kilometers. It has the capacity of carrying 9,500 kilograms and is capable of ground support, it's capable of aerial reconnaissance, it's capable of in-depth strikes, interception, nuclear deterrence and so on. So many different kinds of missiles can be fit in Rafale, and it can strike an enemy from air, that is air-to-air missiles, at 150 kilometer distance to 300 kilometer distance, which is very, very great and very, very huge for the country. It is a very important milestone in the Indo-France relations, and it's one of the 4 countries to have it apart from France, Egypt and Qatar. Rafale is the 4th country, India is the 4th country to have Rafale. It is often compared to the US aircraft, that is F-35 and F-22 aircrafts, and it is a very, very important capability or an increase in the India's capability in the Indian Air Force. Well, after a span of over 20 years, we are importing jets. And before this was the Sukhoi jets that we imported. Write to me in the comment section about which country did we import the Sukhoi jets from. Well, that's it for today's podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's session. Stay tuned to RS Agarwal's IAS. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.